Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of MattTGM's Archetype review. Sorry for the big gap in the series, but honestly I think I prefer it that way because it gives me more time to make the videos as good as they can be, even though that's not saying much. Anyways, enough self-hatred and let's get on to the topic of this video, EVOLSAURs. So what the hell is an EVOLSAUR? Well, it's a type of dinosaur. No, not those kinds of dinosaurs. No, not them either. Yeah, they're those ones. They were a thing that first happened back in Photon Shockwave, and they got their last piece of support in Primal Origin. Also, I lied when I said that I was reviewing the EVOLSAUR archetype. Nope, what I'm actually reviewing is called the Evol archetype. EVOLSAURs are a sub-archetype. Much like Nordics and Genics, Evol is divided up into three different sub-archetypes. EVOLTILE, the starting reptiles, EVOLSAUR, the first stage of evolution into dinosaurs, and EVOLZAR, the final evolution into dragons. These guys are pretty good at what they do, but again, they aren't tier 1, so that basically qualifies them for my archetype review. Without further ado, let's begin. We'll start with the first branch, EVOLTILE. These guys basically exist for the sole purpose of summoning the EVOLSAUR monsters, so some of their effects are pretty simple. Ergo, this section shouldn't take too long. The first monster is EVOLTILE PLEURO, a level 1 fire reptile. For the side note, all EVOLTILEs are fire reptiles, so I'll skip over that part of the card details. It has 200 attack, 200 defense, and the following effect. If this card is destroyed and sent to your graveyard, you can special summon one EVOLSAUR monster from your hand. This is slow, but it does its job. The fact that you can trigger its effect by destroying it yourself makes it more consistent, and even makes it combo with any two-sided field nuke such as Darkhold. However, there are bit EVOLTILEs out there that still function today perfectly well, and limiting the summoning range to the hand makes it more situational than necessary. If you run this, only have it at 1. The next card is EVOLTILE Gefyro. Fuck it. Another level 1 with 200 attack, 400 defense, and this effect. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target one EVOLSAUR monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. This is worse than PLEURO for a few reasons. For one, it has to be destroyed by battle, and with the amount of non-battle removal accessible nowadays, there's no guarantee that the effect will go off. The fact that it can only summon monsters from the graveyard requires additional setup, and it even says when. Overall, there's no reason to run this over PLEURO or any other EVOLTILE monster. EVOLTILE ELGINERO is a level 2 with 0 attack, 0 defense, and when this card on the field is tributed and sent to the graveyard, draw one card, then you can shuffle one dinosaur monster from your hand into your deck, then add one EVOLTILE monster from your deck to your hand. This is a strange effect to say the least. It does what it needs to do, but you could just replace it with Fossil Dig, Upstart Goblin, and a later support card of the Evol archetype. You can run one if you want, but it's situational at best, and bricky at worst. EVOLTILE Nagasho is their next level 2. It has 100 attack, 2000 defense, and this effect. When this card on the field is tributed, you can special summon one EVOLSAUR monster from your deck. This is a pretty good effect, but unless you're actively tribute summoning your EVOLSAURs, this guy might not even be able to use it, because the Evol cards that let you tribute your own stuff are pretty situational by themselves. Don't get me wrong, the effect is really good, and it can result in instant rank 4s depending on what you summon and what graveyard setup you have, but the fact that it needs to be tributed in order to activate it makes it a lot more situational than you might think at first. Run one if you're confident that you're able to use it. EVOLTILE Odonto is a level 2 with 500 attack, 1200 defense, and when it's normal summon, you can special summon an EVOLSAUR monster from your hand. It's almost as simple as it gets, my dudes. What do I even say about this card? This is a very nice effect that allows for basic playmaking, but one drawback I could think of is that you're leaving a 500 attack monster on the field in attack position just to summon one monster. Irregardless, run at least 2 of this guy because he does let you kickstart your plays. EVOLTILE Westlow is a level 3 flip effect monster with 700 attack, 1900 defense, and this flip effect. Special summon one EVOLSAUR monster from your deck. Again, really simple and very good. This is probably the best EVOLTILE monster in the toolbox next to a Zonto, and it can allow for rank 4, 5 or 6 players with just a tiny amount of setup, and it even has pretty good defense for a level 3. The only downside about the card is that it's a flip effect monster, which can make it slow, and if your opponent's running a lot of non-battle removal, which basically everyone is nowadays, you might not get to use the effect. However, there's not a downside that would disregard running the card. Run 2 or 3 of these because it's one of the most consistent ways to make your opening plays, assuming you don't get hit by that non-battle removal. EVOLTILE LAGOSUCHO, they're really struggling for names at this point, is another level 3 with 1200 attack and the following effect. When this card is normal summoned, you can send one EVOLSAUR monster from your deck to your graveyard. When this card is flipped face up, you can special summon one EVOLTILE monster from your deck. While this card can offer decent versatility, it has a few drawbacks that make it questionable to run. For one, you have to choose between the two effects unless you really want to make workarounds. If this wasn't the case, it'd be halfway consistent and actually worth running at a few copies, but it isn't. However, a consistent way to send EVOLSAURs to the graveyard isn't exactly a bad thing, so it ends up being occasional player preference, unless I'm just applying my bullshit logic to a good card. EVOLTILE Castanerio is a level 3 with 1600 attack, 400 defense, and at the end of the battle phase, if this card destroyed an opponent's monster by battle, you contribute this card to special summon 2 level 6 or lower fire dinosaur type monsters with the same name from your deck. Your effects are negated and they're banished during the end phase. This card is a pretty good choice for the deck because while it might be slow due to having to destroy things by battle, it has decent attack for a level 3, and if it's early on in the game, or you're playing against an older archetype, it can enable instant rank 4, 5 or 6 plays. One of which can be Solemn Judgment on legs. You'll see what I'm talking about later on in the video. This card may have been pushed out of the spotlight due to its outdated activation condition, but it's still a decent choice to run as a 1 or 2 off. Now we move on to the next branch of the archetype, EVOLSAURs. They're essentially evolved EVOLTILEs. How surprising. They get stronger if they're summoned by the EVOLTILE's effects, for the most part. Also, they're all fire dinosaurs, so I'll skip over that part of the card details to save time. The first card in this branch is EVOLSAUR PELTA, a level 4 with 1100 attack, 2000 defense and the following effect. If this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, it gains 500 defense. If this card was special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, then is destroyed by battle, you can add one EVOLTILE monster from your deck to your hand. This card sets the trend of the EVOLSAURs getting powered up, it's just that this power up isn't very impressive. Evol has a better search card in the deck, and waiting for this thing to get destroyed by battle, while it has 2500 defense, makes it extremely slow. I personally wouldn't run this one. The next monster is EVOLSAUR Volcano, another level 4, this time with 1200 attack and 1000 defense, and it also has this effect. When this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, you can target one EVOLSAUR monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but it can't declare an attack. This is a pretty good EVOLSAUR because it allows for easy rank 4 plays with just a tiny bit of graveyard setup, and it makes LAGOSUCHO pretty useful. I like having 1 or 2 in my deck, but it can potentially brick you if you don't have a monster to revive or an EVOLTILE to summon the thing. EVOLSAUR DIPLO is a level 4 with 1600 attack, 800 defense, and if this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, you can target one spell or trap card your opponent controls, destroy it. This is Evol's version of MST, and just like Gren from Dark Worlds, it's not nearly as bad as other archetypal MSTs. It has alright stats, and it's a level 4 dinosaur, so you can go into one of the EVOLZAR Xyz monsters. There are better choices to run in the archetype, but if you just need some more cards in your deck, Diplo is a pretty good choice. The final level 4 EVOLSAUR monster is EVOLSAUR CERATO. It has 1900 attack, 1400 defense, and it also has the following effect. If this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, it gains 200 attack, also each time it destroys a monster by battle, you can add one EVOLTILE monster from your deck to your hand. CERATO is the best level 4 EVOLSAUR, even better than Volcano, because if you summon it the way that the deck wants you to, it has enough attack to beat over a decent amount of lower level things, and while the searching may be slow and inferior to Evol's better search card, it's still a solid consistency boost. I'm not sure if I'd call him a staple, but run him at least 2. Their first and only level 5 is EVOLSAUR DARWINO. It has 2200 attack, 700 defense, and when this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, you can target one monster on the field, increase that target's level by up to 2. DARWINO is situational, but he's normally a good choice for your deck. He gives you access to rank 5s, or he can be made a level 6 in order to summon the rank 6 EVOLZAR monster. He also has pretty good stats for a level 5. This card is obviously player preference, but he's hardly the worst card in the archetype. The first level 6 is EVOLSAUR ELIAS. It has 100 attack, 2400 defense, and the following effect. When this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, you can special summon one level 6 or lower fire dinosaur monster from your hand. Basically an instant rank 6 enabler if the effect goes off, assuming you didn't empty your hand. It has a good amount of defense and it lets you swarm the field to an extent. The only problem is that there are only 2 level 6s in the archetype, including this one, so the summoning range is quite limited. It would also be nice if it would make the summon monster be treated like it was summoned by an EVOLTILE monster, but I might be asking for a bit too much. If you're solely focusing on the EVOLZAR rank 4s, which isn't actually a bad idea, leave this card out, but other builds should have a nice time with this. The final EVOLSAUR monster, and the final main deck monster in general, is EVOLSAUR TERIAS. It has 2400 attack, 600 defense, and a pretty confusing effect. When this card is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster, it loses 500 attack. This is just weird because normally EVOLSAURs get stronger when summoned by EVOLTILEs, so this guy is quite strange. However, it's still worth running at least 2 of these due to it being a level 6 dinosaur, unless you're only focusing on the rank 4s as previously mentioned. The final branch of Evol are the extra deck monsters, known as EVOLZARs. These revolve around using the EVOLSAURs to summon them, at least in Archetype, but they don't actually require Evol monsters, meaning that they can be summoned using any dinosaurs, therefore they can be splashed into any dinosaur deck. However, despite these things being so reliant on dinosaur monsters to summon them, they're not actually dinosaurs, they're fire dragons. As confusing as that is, let's just move on to their first monster. The first EVOLZAR monster is EVOLZAR DOLKKA, a rank 4 that requires 2 level 4 dinosaur type monsters. It has 2300 attack, 1700 defense, and when a monster effect is activated during either player's turn, you can detach one material from this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. This is a very nice effect, and the fact that it can be used more than once per turn lets you negate up to 2 monster effects per turn, which makes it pretty disruptive. The Evol extra deck space isn't exactly cramped unless you're running some weird variant that I haven't thought of, so it's worth running at 2 minimum. The most notorious of the Evol cards is this majestic looking beast, EVOLZAR LAGIA. It's another rank 4 that requires 2 level 4 dinosaur monsters, and it has 2400 attack, 2000 defense, and this following effect. During either player's turn, when a monster would be normal or special summoned, or a spell or trap card would be activated, you can detach 2 materials from this card, negate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy it. This is the second closest thing we have to Solemn Judgment in the modern game, and it's pretty damn impressive. It can negate almost anything your opponent does, and it's pretty easy to bring out, not only in Evol, but also in Jurassic, or more commonly, the infamous Dino Rabbit deck. This thing could be brought out most turns with the use of Rescue Rabbit, which now happens to be unlimited. However, it does have a few weaknesses. This thing can only use its effect once while it's on the field because it has to detach 2 monsters, but if it only required 1 material to detach, this thing would probably have seen the ban list pretty fast. However, this weakness can be circumvented by using number 19 Freezedon, which can allow you to use Lagia's effect 3 times while it's on the field, which is incredibly powerful. Admittedly, that means you have to run potentially bricky main deck monsters or multiple copies of DARWINO, but it's still a decently viable strategy. Or at least it was before the Linky Boys came to town. Getting back to the few downsides that Lagia has, it also can't negate monster effects or counter traps. This means that it has less range than Solemn Judgment, or more recently, Solemn Scolding. Oh yeah, and how could one forget the biggest weakness of all? It can't stop flip summons. That's right, just flip over that man-eater bug and this guy falls over like Royal Knight of the fucking Ice Barrier. Bad jokes aside, this is still a fantastic card, and definitely worth running at 3 in the extra deck, seeing as you're not exactly really torn for space. The last Evol monster is EVOLZAR Soldier, a rank 6 with 2600 attack, 100 defense, and it also has this effect. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects while it has Xyz material. When your opponent special summons a monster, you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card, negate the summon, and destroy it. While this thing may not be as good as Lagia by any means, it can at least protect itself, and it can also prevent 2 summons instead of 1 like Lagia. This card is still worth running at least 1 unless you're only focusing on Lagia or DOLKKA. Their first spell card is Evo Diversity, a normal spell that allows you to add 1 EVOLTILE monster or 1 EVOLSAUR monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Evo Diversity per turn. While the fact that you can only activate 1 of these per turn is annoying, that's literally the only downside to the card. It can search both main deck branches of this archetype, and it has no cost. Definitely run this at 3, no matter your build. Evo Force is their other normal spell card. Tribute 1 EVOLTILE monster, special summon 1 EVOLSAUR monster from your deck, and is treated as if it was special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster. This is a very useful card that makes EVOLSAURs easier to power up, and it also lets you use the tribute effects of some of the EVOLTILEs, even though those aren't particularly special. I'd say you can run this at least 2 or 3. But, you know, I'm not a very good player, so you probably shouldn't do what I do. Their only quick play spell is Evo MIRACLE. It allows you to target 1 monster that was special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster. This turn, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. This is pretty good protection, but honestly a bit unnecessary. You won't normally have EVOLSAURs that were special summoned by EVOLTILEs on the field for very long because, hopefully, you'll be using them for Xyz during the turn they were summoned. That being said, the card can still potentially be useful in some situational situations, but it's kind of bricky, depending on your EVOLSAUR ratio. That being said, run it if you want, but no more than 1. Evo Karma is their first continuous spell. When a monster is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster you control, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects. Again, this card is halfway decent protection, but your EVOLSAURs aren't really the ones that need it. I don't think most people nowadays would be cowering in fear of your EVOLSAURs, seeing as they would rather save their strikes for Lagia or DOLKKA. Again, it's alright protection, but it'd be better if it covered a wider range of monsters. The next continuous spell is Evo Price. It states that once per turn, if a monster is special summoned by the effect of an EVOLTILE monster except during the damage step, you can target one card on the field to destroy that target. This is actually kind of useful considering it can help you get rid of potentially dangerous back row, such as Solemn Strike or Solemn Warning, before you try to go into an EVOLZAR monster. It's not a staple, but you can run one or two if you really want to. Their last continuous spell, and their last spell card in general, is Primordial Soup. Once per turn during your main phase, you can shuffle up to 2 EVOLSAURs from your hand into your deck, then draw the same number of cards. You can only control one Primordial Soup. It's not a terrible effect, but putting your EVOLSAURs back into the deck is not normally something you'd want to do unless you have Westlow face down. Run it if you want, but there are far better cards that boost consistency in the Archetype. Their first trap card is Evo Instant. It allows you to tribute one EVOLTILE monster to special summon one EVOLSAUR monster from your deck. This is frankly just a worse version of Evo Force and not worth running at all. Evo Branch is another normal trap that allows you to target one reptile type monster you control, destroy it, and special summon one EVOLTILE monster in face down defense position from your deck. This isn't a completely terrible effect, but there's only 2 EVOLTILE monsters with flip effects, and I'm not sure if they're worth destroying other monsters for. In other words, don't play this card. The next trap card is Evolutionary Bridge. When a monster you control is targeted for an attack, target one EVOLTILE monster in your graveyard. Special summon it, then change the attack target to that monster and conduct damage calculation. I'm honestly struggling to see the point of this card. It does let you revive an EVOLTILE monster, especially one with the battle floating effects, but those aren't really worth reviving a monster for, and the attack protection is honestly pretty meager, considering your opponent can just slam over the original attack target with another monster. So, as I've said with the last 2 traps, leave this one out. With the disappointment of the last 3 trap cards, you may think that their entire trap lineup has no reason to exist. But then we get to this absolute beast of a card, Evo Singularity, which also happens to be their last card in general. It allows you to target one EVOLTILE monster and one EVOLSAUR monster in your graveyard, special summon one EVOLZAR monster from your extra deck, and if you do, attach those monsters to it as Exceed materials. What else can I say? It equals an instant Lagia, DOLKKA or Solder with a minimal amount of graveyard setup. This is definitely a staple because it allows you to make a very, very nice comeback. Time for the grading scale. Consistency. Their consistency was already heavily boosted by King of the Feral Imps, CERATO and Fossil Dig, but Evo Diversity is enough to push this up to a green. The power aspect, on the other hand, isn't really worth talking about. Their strongest monster is 2600 attack, the majority have attack that is less than impressive, and one of their monsters gets weaker if you summon it the way you're supposed to. And there aren't really enough removal effects in order to help out here. Comeback ability. Due to the presence of Evo Singularity and the metric fuckton of generic dinosaur support this deck can utilize, I'm willing to give them at least half a point in this regard. Protection. They do have some protection in the form of Evo Karma and Evo Miracle, but they aren't particularly impressive. Also, I don't count negation when talking about the protection aspect, so I have no choice but to give them a red. Versatility. The fact that Lagia and DOLKKA exist, and to a lesser extent Solder, is enough to earn them half a point on their own. But the fact that they can special summon ranks 4, 5 and 6 fairly easily is enough for me to give them a green, especially considering the amount of generic dinosaur support that they can use to enhance their plays. Here's my deck list for Evol, focusing on the EVOLZAR monsters as well as Freezedon. I would be using Doolittle Chimera if Konami hadn't made Land Pholinx, which is probably the best Link monster if you just want some additional zones. Evol is quite an interesting archetype, seeing as I said they're split into 3 sub-branches, but they handled that split decently well. All the branches are synergetic with each other, and they fit with the theme of the deck. Evol is also responsible for giving dinosaurs an extremely dangerous tool that almost any dino deck can utilize, and the fact that they're dinosaurs in the first place gives them a lot of outside support, and they will only keep getting stronger with time. I also like how for the most part, it's a well-designed archetype. The cards work together without being broken, and they actually have a viable win condition as well as the means to get there. One of the major problems I have with them is that they really have no broken play. What I mean by that is some play that almost guarantees them to win, like Venominaga for Venoms, or Apocalypse Fort Towers for Cleafort, Kaiju's not included. I really would like more support for Evol, which is basically what I say about every archetype I review, but in their case, you wouldn't have to give them that much in order to fix their remaining problems. All they really need is a field spell to fix some remaining problems, a few more level 4 EVOLSAURs, and a better rank 6. And then I think they could actually be a somewhat viable force in the meta. That is before Konami decides to change up the format with new cards that make my argument irrelevant, as usual. Anyways, if you guys happen to disagree with my opinions in this review, please try not to be too sore about it. Hey everyone, thank you for watching another episode of MattTGM's Archetype review. hopefully you enjoyed this one, and if you want to leave a request for an archetype for me to review in the future, just leave it in the comment section below and I will get to it as soon as I can. I do have 2 archetype reviews currently in the works right now, those being Ice Barriers and Gustos, so any requests will be left until after those. If you have any ideas on how I could improve this series, please leave them in the comment section below and I will take them into consideration for next time. I am Matthew of MattTGM, and I'll see you guys all next time.